So, what do you want to start with?
So are we live?
We are. I mean, anyone who has the link can watch it, but and it's being recorded, so we can share it later.
Awesome, awesome. So I think we should just start talking about so first off, I don't know if you're having this experience, but I feel like people in New York, a lot of people in New York are constantly telling me anybody any age can get really sick, and then there are people in New Jersey that are angry that they're not going to restaurants and feel like this is absolutely no big deal, and anyone under 60 is fine. And I feel like it would be great to sort of address this from a Star Trek point of view, because from a Star Trek point of view, that would not be cool.
No, I mean, I was looking at the quote from Wrath of Khan popped into my head: "The needs of the many outweighing the needs of the few," and I kind of feel like that's pretty accurate in these times.
I agree, and I think that that's consistent within Star Trek, within Starfleet, let's say.
Starfleet, yes, within Starfleet. Fair enough. Fair enough.
I mean, if we were Romulan, we might just go about and murder anybody who couldn't survive it and just get on with our lives. But we don't even know that. We don't even know who could or couldn't survive it.
Oh, interesting. Like who would be more susceptible to the coronavirus?
You're aware of that. It's weird. I feel like I'm watching different news than people that I love in New Jersey who are telling me that, it's no big deal. And it's just like a flu or cold.
Are they younger? Are they mostly younger, the people who are saying it's no big deal?
All different ages.
I mean, I've definitely had, someone said to me like, "Hey, you want to get together today?" And I'm like, we're not really supposed to do that.
Yeah, a good friend of mine who's actually a New Yorker. I wish I had a yoga mat. That's like one thing I never thought I would need, because I go to yoga maybe once or twice a week, and I miss it. But I had a friend be like, "Hey, why don't you just chop on the subway? I have an extra one." Like,
we're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, and that's a friend who's over 60. Like, for what? For what risk? Yeah.
Right. That's the thing, is what are you risking? Like, what's really worth? There was even that conversation, going to shows or open mics, like, is it really worth risking it, even before we were on full hunker down mode like this?
I actually called out of my last show. You know what, Six? My last performance before this happened, I killed with my coronavirus material.
Ooh, that's great.
Yeah, but I don't know that material is even going to make any sense once we are done with this. It was just a one-time joke.
It depends. Someone said to me that they think once we come out of it, I guess it depends on when we come out of it and what happens. But like, let's say best case scenario, like 4 weeks from now, we're back in the clubs and doing stuff. It's still going to be top of mind.
Yeah.
So it really just depends on what happens. And God, for God's sake, there's so much going on. It happens really quickly. As near as I can tell, the mayor and the governor are fighting over whether or not New York should be shut down.
Can I ask who you like better?
Oh, who I like better? I like Cuomo better. I had not been paying that much attention to de Blasio. Like, did you know he was as much of a nitwit as he is? Like, I just didn't realize.
Well, I'm a big animal rights activist, and I was really happy that he had all those. About 2 years ago, he put up all these posters of wild animals that live in New York City, like raccoons and stuff. And
that's fabulous.
And he implemented Meatless Mondays, which made all my people really happy. But his behavior in this has just been like...
The thing that stunned me with de Blasio was he just seems unable to make a decision. That was what surprised me. Like the whole thing with closing the schools, it was like clearly the schools needed to be closed. Obviously, you have to find a way for the poor kids to be able to get their meals, and those are real concerns. I'm not diminishing that, but there was enormous outcry, and clearly the thing that made the most sense was to close the schools, and he couldn't do it. And I honestly felt less like he thought it was right to keep them open, and more like he couldn't make up his mind. That was what really amazed me. That's what I saw when I looked at him.
And people call him a pothead. Like, it's like you could just picture him like in quarantine, smoking weed, eating cheese, being like, I don't know, man. So
cheese?
What Star Trek character do you most relate to?
That's interesting. When I wish I could say Spock, because I kind of worship Spock. I've always loved Spock, but I think I'm more like McCoy because I can get very cranky. And I'm definitely, I definitely really relate to the way McCoy is always the guy who comes out and says, no, that's not okay. This is not right. It's not even so much negative, but I feel like he's the ultimate realist. And I can really relate to that. I really appreciate that.
He holds it together, though. I feel like Spock really, he likes to challenge Spock consistently.
Yes. No, the whole interplay between the two of them is some of the best stuff on the series. I mean, their relationship. I mean, it's one of the things that makes all of the series so great is the relationships between the characters, and certainly his relationship with Spock is top notch. I mean, there's just nothing. It's nothing but interesting, and they're just McCoy is very emotional. Spock holds that stuff deep, really deep inside, and that's what I always envied, because I think that would have to be an amazing thing to be able to be that dispassionate about things, and to be able to look at everything with pure logic.
Wouldn't it be great to look at this with pure logic?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can't do that.
Yeah, I'm not a very logical person. I mean, I definitely have some logic and I use it, but I'm not what you would call a logical person. What do you think McCoy would do in this situation?
Oh, McCoy would be testing people. McCoy would have the lab working nonstop. He'd be working poor Nurse Chapel to the bone. I mean, he'd be out there. He'd be looking for a cure. I mean, the whatever they're calling him, not McCoy Prime is the main McCoy, but whoever, Carl Urban McCoy from the movies, like in the second one where they cure Kirk, and he's sitting there and he tries it out on a tribble, and he's just there's definitely built into the character this idea that this ongoing research, that nothing is ever done until everybody's dead, that he's going to keep on going and keep on trying, which is obviously something also that I really admire.
He probably wouldn't sleep either.
No, he'd be pounding the coffee and hitting himself up with stimulants. That was something that didn't occur to me when I was younger and I used to watch Star Trek. And then when I was older, I was like, they're doing stimulant shots. That's kind of weird. Like, that's a weird detail for Roddenberry to have included, like, that they're actually getting injections of stimulants. That's pretty kooky.
Do you know, do you know anything about Roddenberry's personal life? I know a little bit, but I don't know about that.
Not a ton. I mean, it does make me wonder if maybe he was into drugs, because that would make sense.
He was polyamorous. He was openly polyamorous.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
Not only was he openly polyamorous, he had no problem with a woman. If a woman wanted to be on Star Trek, and she felt like sleeping with him to be on Star Trek, he saw no problem with that. And if knowing that, go back and watch it, you can see them in the series, in the first and second series. Like
people who couldn't act, and maybe they're
just hot chicks that are in like a couple of minutes.
Right.
I have a theory that Ensign Gomez is that, and Ensign Gomez is in absolutely one of my favorite episodes. But she has this monologue where she's like, we're gonna be the first to be out there, and we're here, and you're the best, and it's very, very awkward. So like, and every time I see it, I'm like, I know Roddenberry must have slept with her.
A casting couch special.
Do you remember her?
No, I don't remember. She's on. This is Next Generation.
Yeah.
Let me look. Let's take a quick look. I don't want to bring people screeching home now, but I got to admit, I'm curious. I'm really curious. Ensign.
She's adorable. I don't judge her for it, But every time she's in two episodes.
Yeah, totally. Sure, why not?
But so you're just looking at what she looks like. You have to see her give that speech and the awkwardness of it. And that's when I was like, oh God.
No, I'm going to look that up. She was a dancer, the actress. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, there you go.
That gives perspective on why her acting is not at Star Trek level.
I did not know that.
Really uneven.
See, the sleeping with actresses is not unusual, but I think polyamorous is a little unusual, especially back then, to be open about it, right? I mean, I don't think that was common.
I don't know. The 70s was wild, wasn't it?
I guess that's true. I guess
people had like orgies and stuff.
Yeah, no, I guess that's true. I guess maybe I'm wrong. There were swingers.
But I wonder if he took stimulants. He was. Did you know that he was at one point he was the California chief of police or the Los Angeles chief of police?
No.
And he was working hard to implement sort of stun guns. And and please, I know Star Trek people are going to listen to this and be like, I'm an idiot. So I don't quite remember the exact details. I didn't think this was going to come up, but I think Star Trek didn't get picked up or something like that. And then he started working with the police, and then it did get picked up, and he left the police.
Mm. Okay. I mean, that would make sense. I mean, he did do like police. Didn't he have a show called The Lieutenant? He had some army show. I mean, he definitely dabbled in things other than Star Trek.
Have you seen Picard yet?
No, I haven't. That maybe I'll do that tonight, because I do have a way to watch it, so I can.
Okay, good. So a lot of fans are upset about Picard, and they feel like Gene Roddenberry would be very upset about the darker vision of it.
Anytime somebody says, Roddenberry would like this, he wouldn't like this. I mean, first of all, aren't his kids involved?
Yeah.
So, I mean, at that point, you kind of have to take it for what it is. I mean, if the people who are in charge with keeping the faith think it's okay, then you got to go with it. I mean, that you don't know what he would or wouldn't have liked. I'm sure there were people who saw Next Generation and said Roddenberry would have hated that, and he was still alive. I mean, like you can always find, he couldn't possibly. Look, I mean, Next Generation was in many ways extremely different from the original series, because the world had changed, and he evolved with it. And I think that's to his credit. That's not something that you can bash.
So it's interesting. There's something about the 80s and 80s television. And by any chance, have you seen Little House on the Prairie or Touched by an Angel in the past?
I've seen it, but not recently.
Okay. So these two shows are really based on people butting into other people's business and trying to fix their lives.
Right.
So there was this sort of thought in the 80s that we could fix other people, which we don't think now.
That's interesting.
Like if you have a friend who has a drug addiction or something like that, you might offer your friend help, but you're not going to force them to do something they don't want to do, if that makes sense. We just don't sort of think that way. We're not as communal as we used to be.
That's it. So we're a little more individualist, is that?
Yeah, I think so.
That's it. Particularly with the rise of social media, if anything, you'd think would be more communal. But I guess maybe that hasn't really worked out that way.
I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. I hadn't thought about it. I think that's an interesting idea. So we were more sort of in each other's business in the 80s than we are now.
At least Michael Landon was. And there is an aspect of the Next Generation that's very inclusive. But Jean-Luc Picard was written to sort of be better than we are as people.
Right.
To be evolved. And he doesn't really involve himself in other people's business. He keeps on track and thought of what is best for everyone.
But that Enterprise is a much more communal operation. I mean, you can just see it just from the bridge setup. It's, he's got his advisors sitting right there. I mean, Kirk would never have had that. I mean, he would ask Spock and he would ask McCoy what they thought. But ultimately, he wasn't sitting there with them literally sitting next to him, to give him advice. There was no position of advisor. That's not Kirk.
Well, Kirk seems always ready to jump before he has all the information. Like he feels like he's got what he knows. That's enough information. He's gonna go and jump and do what he needs to do. Whereas Picard, I feel like he needs to sit back, get all his information before making any choices.
So I think we'd rather have Picard in charge of the coronavirus than Kirk, it sounds like.
I mean, I would.
Well, I mean, because you did a great video sort of going through all the captains, and I feel like, because Kirk would jump on it, but I also feel like Kirk would involve McCoy. Like Kirk would know what his limitations were. Like he would know that this was a medical problem that he could not solve. As far as keeping people working and letting them off, if they're getting sick, keeping the beds operating and being able. I think the ship would keep operating. People would start dropping because everyone would start getting sick. I mean, imagine having coronavirus in a starship.
Right.
That would
they'd be like a ship, like one of our cruise ships, where everybody is together and they get sick very quickly.
God, can you imagine? I mean, even if it was a Star Trek cruise, I'd be miserable.
And as I said it in the video, I feel like if this happened, Janeway would infect herself immediately so that everybody could test on her.
Now, would that be kind of, she would do that, because I haven't watched that much Voyager. Like, you think she would do that as a way, as a heroic thing, like as a heroic measure?
Yeah, so that way they can test things on her.
Okay.
Now I'll be your guinea pig. You can test everything on me. But she
That
would,
would be,
so on one side it's that, and then the other side, if she happened to contract it, not on purpose, it's really hard to get her not to work. You know, if Dr. Crusher tells Picard he can't work, he listens to her. Janeway doesn't listen to the doctor. She's like, and programmed. She's like, she just shuts him off.
well, and that's not a real doctor. I mean, it's a real doctor, but it's not there's no physical form.
You know, he's got his personal hollow emitter.
Right.
And he has some sense of consciousness as the show evolves, as he evolves.
Right.
So, you know, she tries it, but she's very like, sort of go into the face of danger, even though she's the captain, she's not supposed to.
Right.
They all do this, right?
That's very true to going all the way back to the original, though, because I mean, it was amazing how the away team was always Kirk, Spock, McCoy. It was always all the frontline people. And granted, it's the stars of the show, so it makes sense. But it's also,
and then one red shirt, so that
one red shirt, so somebody's got to die. But you would think that at some point they would say, you know, maybe the captain could stay on board. Maybe the ship's doctor could stay on board. You know, that might be better.
But Picard stays on board quite often.
Well, I assume at some point they realized it was crazy. I mean, you can't have, you know, I mean, you can't have your captain going down to the planet every time. You don't know what the hell's down there. There could be coronavirus.
Yeah. Who do you think would be a better doctor in this, Pulaski or Crusher?
Oh, interesting. I did always like Crusher. I was always fond of Crusher. What do you
You were? Men like her.
Well, okay. Right. That's not the only reason, but fair. You know, she's crushworthy. She's definitely crushworthy.
Yeah.
But she's a good doctor.
She's not I love Pulaski, and I hated her when I was younger.
Oh, really? Why is that?
Yeah. Well, she's very weird with Data. She challenges his being conscious. She calls him an it more than once. Two of my probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite story arc, is the whole Professor Moriarty combination. And that is propelled by her challenging the fact that Data as
an android, you mean? Or?
As the detective.
As Sherlock Holmes.
As Data as Sherlock Holmes could never actually solve a mystery on his own. That he only is solving mysteries based on the plots that he already has in his programming. And so Professor Moriarty is actually given consciousness by the computer so that he can challenge Data because of Pulaski's insinuation that Data can't.
Oh, okay. Pulaski's or Crusher's? Because Crusher said he can't.
No, Pulaski.
Oh, Pulaski. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Pulaski says he can't. So I think that's another reason why people like really don't like her. Mm-hmm. There's something sort of off-putting and masculine about the way she goes about things, which I didn't appreciate when I was younger, which I really appreciate now.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I would say some of my opinions of things change. I mean, certainly with the original series, I mean, the whole way, you know, that, women are wearing the short skirts, and, you know, it's not bad to look at, but you might want to, it was very much of its time. Let's put it that way.
So I don't know if you remember at the beginning of The Next Generation, the women are wearing short skirts, but so are some of the men.
Oh, yes, I have seen that. That's interesting.
But that wasn't the style at the time. So then they just gave Troy just a protruding neckline and left it at that. Right.
Yes, she did have quite a neckline. She was quite endowed. She definitely showed it off. The skirt thing, I read something online about it. There's actually like a written explanation for that's actually a Starfleet uniform, a skirt for men. That's actually there's some document about it.
I mean, I couldn't picture Spock in a skirt like that.
No, that it was an option, that it was something that if you wanted it, if you, no, I don't mean from the original series. It didn't start until Next Generation, but that in the world of Star Trek, they actually came up with okay, this is, like, it wasn't just like someone said, hey, this will be funny. Like someone actually came up with, okay, this is an actual reason. I mean, that's of course one of the great things about Star Trek. It's a very complete world.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a world that you would want to live in, but you know, that and also it could happen. I mean, you know, I'm not holding my breath, but it is set in it's in the future. It's in an Earth future. You know, it's not like it's not like, so, you know, say like a Marvel Comics, which is set in New York, but Spider-Man is here. You know,
Right.
or DC Comics, where Gotham is a stand-in for New York, but obviously is, you know, the worst part of New York, et cetera, et cetera. But Star Trek, one of the things I like about it is, you know, Starfleet's in San Francisco. Okay, why not? You know, there's
Yeah.
a base in Idaho or Iowa, wherever. Kirk from Iowa, I think from Iowa. I should know that. Someone will get mad at me for that, but I forget sometimes. But you know what I mean? That it's like it's Earth. Like that was one of the fun things about some of the newer Star Trek movies. They spent some time on Earth, and it was kind of interesting to see what does Earth look like in the Star Trek future.
And if I'm not incorrect, Cisco's father owned a restaurant in New Orleans.
Oh no, I didn't realize that. That's
At
cool.
some point.
But future New Orleans.
Yeah. Like in their time, Cisco goes and visits his dad at the restaurant in New Orleans that he owns.
Deep Space Nine, I think I have to dive back into. This popped up on a Star Trek group. This is from Quark. Quark says, "Let me tell you something about humans, nephew. They're a wonderful, friendly people as long as their bellies are full and their holosuites are working. But take away their creature comforts, deprive them of food, sleep, sonic showers, put their lives in jeopardy over an extended period of time, and those same friendly, intelligent, wonderful people will become as nasty and violent as the most bloodthirsty Klingon. You don't believe me? Look at those faces, look at those eyes." I don't know if I agree with that, but I sort of, from a storytelling standpoint, I think it's interesting.
It's interesting in this time now. Last night I was thinking about the fact that I've had some ups and downs in life. I've had some things that didn't go too well, and I never appreciated that in the way that I do now, because I don't really mind. Don't get me wrong, I miss everything.
Right.
But as long as I'm healthy and the people I love are healthy, you know what I'm saying? Like,
no, totally.
Like, so I'm a little uncomfortable for a little while. It's not that big a deal. As long as everyone I love is healthy, I'm praying for those who really believe it. I mean, this is a Star Trek show, so it's a little bit on the atheist side. I'm sort of agnostic, but just putting that energy out there that everybody will get through this and be safe. But, you know, I used to be I'm a junk food vegan, and I'm a really spoiled junk food vegan. And I drink a lot of wine. I haven't had any wine. I haven't had any dessert. I haven't had any deep fried seitan or anything like that in a week. And I don't care at all. I don't, whatever.
You're not missing it.
No, not really. You know, I'd like it, but I'd rather stay in and do my part, you know?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I actually think, as much as like we talked about, there are some people who are saying, you know, oh, I want to go out. I'm mad the restaurants are closed. I find that most people are staying in, that the vast majority of people are staying in. So I would say Quark is actually wrong about this, that, you know, yes, there was hoarding of toilet paper, which was weird.
So let's stop there for a second. You may or may not know vegans go number 2 way more than normal people.
Oh, I did not know that.
We're like birds, you know? We have like, it's like constant. But I think if I had to take a shower after every single time during this, and that's the worst thing that happens, so what?
It's true. It's not like you're out and about. It's not, and you have to go.
Yeah.
Like you're home, you got to take a shower.
Why toilet paper? Why are Americans so consumed with toilet paper?
Someone said to me, I've been doing a daily radio show, which you will be on sometime next week, and Felicia Madison was on with me today, and she said that it had to do with China. The toilet paper is not made in China, and so in China they were hoarding it, and somehow that transferred the idea that they were hoarding it. Then suddenly we were hoarding it, and honestly, that makes about as much sense as anything that I've heard. Like, I think that's a perfectly legitimate explanation.
So a lot of people in Italy have bidets. Is that correct?
Oh, I think, yeah, generally in Europe. Every time I've ever been to Europe in a hotel, there's always a bidet.
So then they're fine.
Yeah, exactly. As long as you got a bidet, you're okay. I mean, look, you would not want to, it would not be good to run out of toilet paper, but there's a point where you're like, okay, how much toilet paper could you possibly need? And it does get a little crazy.
I definitely have more than I normally have in my apartment, but you know, in a way, my concern with toilet paper is more, I have allergies. I need to touch my nose. In fact, this is horrible, but I'm touching my nose when I'm sleeping constantly.
I know you said that. How are you sure? Like, you're positive that you're doing that?
I wake up and I'm like, oh no, I'm scratching my nose.
See, I would think that if you wash your hands before you went to bed, then you're okay. You know,
I hope.
I mean, I would think. I mean, I don't know. Like, I feel like Star Trek would be good. I feel like Star Trek was always very clean.
Yeah, there would be some kind of scanner that would just wipe everything.
Right, they'd have like an ultraviolet thing that would just zap it, and it would be fine.
And then we'd have those special sinks that we just rub our hands over, and it opens in a drawer, and we stick our hands in.
Right, it would be so much nicer. Oh my hands are like, the tops are starting to get red. I mean, it's because of the hot water. I'm trying not to overdo it, but at the same time, I got to do it. So you got to wash your hands. It's something you can do.
I'm very lucky. A friend of mine gave me this very special cream from Europe that's helping me. I have eczema, so my hands, they're like, I had very young hands for this. So
yeah,
but
eczema, yeah, that's hard.
But it's not like I said. It's not that big a deal.
No. As these things go, I mean, I realized today that it's not, I mean, I'm not going to say it's perfect, and obviously it would be nice to go outside. That was nice. I miss that. But I do have something of a schedule every day. And I feel like that's important. Like, I get up, I shower, I'm doing a little writing, I'm doing a radio show, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do something else. Like, I just, that's how I'm going to stay, you know, relatively normal, and not just sit around and, you know, watch Netflix and eat, because that's not ideal. At some point I got to start exercising. I need to find, we just moved. There's a lot of boxes around. I got to clear out a space so I can find some place. I'm not a big exercise guy, but I know I have to force myself to do it, because it just, you know, this is not going to go away.
You're normally walking around in New York City doing things.
Exactly. No, I normally hit 3,000 steps on my Fitbit. You know, I'm at 1,300 today, you know, and that's just walking around the apartment, and that's not going to do it. No, I routinely, I take long walks because I'm going from place to place.
I've been doing exercise videos, dance videos.
That's a great idea. Is that something you did before? That's something you did before?
No, I'm a 4-day-a-weeker exerciser, 2 days of yoga, 1 regular, 1 Bikram, and then 2 days this massive workout I do. I run a little bit, I do a sculpting, and then I swim for 30 to 40 minutes, and then I sit in a sauna.
Ooh.
I miss it. But again, whatever.
No. I mean, what are you going to do? But that's a good workout. I mean, that's a good workout routine.
And I love it. I love swimming, because swimming, it not only you're like exercising and sort of being relaxed at the same time, because the water sort of massages your body as you move.
That sounds nice.
You're isolated. No one can contact you.
Oh, that's true. You can't, no phones in the water.
No phones, yeah.
Are you checking your phone too much? Because I definitely am.
I'm actually taking mental health breaks from everything. And I think this is like a good thing that I have, because of my anxiety, people are checking on me. It's going to get worse. It's going to get significantly worse. I don't need to know every little update as that happens. I'm already aware of it. So I watch cozy TV. I watch reruns of Frasier and work and write, because and this is the thing about like checking the phone and checking Facebook. It's so weird. It's like, it's just a cold, it's a conspiracy. It's a biological weapon. We're all going to die. They're just locking us in for nothing. Like, it's extremes on either side. And so 1 minute you're like, oh, everything's fine. Oh my God, everything's fine. Oh my God. That's not good for the nervous system.
No, it's not good at all.
I would probably take our phones away from us and be like, enough of this. You get this back after the pandemic.
Well, that's something that's interesting. I read somewhere they were saying, you know, one thing they don't have on Star Trek is like they have, because because I think the iPad is essentially based on the pad from the Next Generation, the PADD. Is that right? Is that what that's called? And that's really the closest thing to an iPad. But what it didn't have was like stupid games. You know, it didn't have Candy Crush. It didn't have Facebook. You know, there's no social networking. They're not.
Have you ever played Candy Crush?
I have not. My wife was way into it.
Okay, I played something called Fishdom, which is a version of Candy Crush, but there's fish involved. It's really addictive.
Yeah.
Really, really addictive. When I think of the episode, the game where Riker goes to Risa and he sleeps with this woman, I mean, I'm assuming that's what happened, but he comes back with a game and everybody gets addicted to it. And
Right.
I think that's Candy Crush.
Right. But it's like, it's limited to that. Like, it isn't like that wasn't part of life. Like, that's sort of, you know, I'm always interested in what does sci-fi get right and what is it, you know, what does it not predict? Like, one thing that it didn't get right was flat screens. Like,
right.
If you look at cartoons or Star Trek, like, they would have screens, and, you know, on the Star Trek original series, this is 1966, all literature is boiled down to the computer.
Right.
So, like, when Uhura loses her language and is only speaking Swahili, they have the little screen on an arm, but it's a big fat screen. Like, it's not a flat screen. And it's just
it's the way screens were then. It had the bubble.
Exactly. So nobody thought, oh, one day they will be. Even on Futurama, which is much more recent, the screens were big. You know, they were fat, and then eventually they flattened out because that's what we ended up with. And, you know, but
Futurama is loosely it has like a basis on the original series. Like, Zach Brannigan's really.
Oh, he's if Shatner were a real captain, I think is how they described it, right? I believe that's how Billy West said. He said, you know, what if Shatner had a real starship? You know? If I'm not wearing pants, you know, I mean, it's amazing. And obviously, it's very steeped. The whole show is very steeped in Star Trek, and one of the best episodes is the one where all the Star Trek became a religion, and they sent all the videotapes off into the stratospheres, and no one could get to them. It's a whole thing. But one thing, like, I'm just thinking, like, what sort of news is there on Star Trek? Like, I don't know that there's like a news outlet. You know, like, they get subspace broadcasts, but there's not like a news broadcast. They find out things, but they don't find out things the way we find out things in this constant stream of stuff.
It's not healthy, I don't think.
Oh, it's not healthy at all.
I feel a lot better taking breaks from it, and
absolutely.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I can't think of anything that in the 80s there was news, and in the 70s there was news, and 90s there was news.
Right. I mean, we had there was news, but it wasn't the way it is now. But also, and yeah, it just didn't make its way onto. Now, they're military, so I don't know that the military, like, there are military specific broadcasts. But that's one of the things that I always find interesting about Starfleet is they're not going out and fighting for the sake of fighting, and they're not waging war unless they have to. But it is military. Like, that is the military. Everything has become Starfleet, right? I think that's a fair statement.
Well, that's part of it. I mean, their mission is to boldly go where no one's gone before, but they only fight if they have to.
Right. But it's a military structure. Like, you know, it's not an aggressive military, but it's still so, you know, and at least on, I mean, I guess entertainment, the primary source of entertainment on Next Generation would be the holodeck, right? Isn't that what people did to get away?
They also all of them explore their talents and their joys and then share them with others. So, like, not that he's good at it, but Data performs a poetry reading, and there are numerous times where Dr. Crusher directs plays for everybody.
Right, I forgot about that. That's right.
So it's almost like if you've ever been on a cruise ship and there's a talent show.
Right. But that would be, you know, but it's also, it's deeper because it's like staff, and this is what they do to relieve their stress. Yeah.
Riker plays saxophone and performs.
Right. That's another big difference is, you know, I imagine that this was, I like to imagine that Roddenberry did this on purpose, or at least, you know, thought about it, is on the original series, something that I didn't notice when I was a kid, but I of course noticed later, is that Kirk really sucked all the air out of the room, or Shatner rather. So, like, there was never a Sulu-centric episode because he wouldn't allow Like, from what according to George Takei, I've heard him in interviews,
Right.
that like there were close-ups that were nixed because Shatner said nobody's getting a close-up except me. You know,
Really?
so there were whole scripts that maybe were written because they clearly were interested in Sulu.
Hmm.
Like one of the things that I like to joke about, but it's true, is that they clearly knew George was gay because his mirror image in Mirror Sulu is a crazy womanizer. So like someone had it in their head, like, oh yeah, this is not a guy who really likes women, so his mirror image has to really like women.
But George Takei says that Sulu was not gay and was really, really angry with the reboot that the character was gay. They're like, he was like, I'm gay. The character is not gay.
Did you understand that? I didn't really get that.
I don't know.
Totally get. I mean, I guess maybe he's saying the idea that a gay man can't play a straight character. If it's from that perspective, then I guess I understand.
And he was angry at that, you think?
I guess. I mean, you know, maybe, or I guess, you know, why does he have to be gay just because I'm gay? And if you look at it that way, I guess I can understand it. That kind of makes sense. But I, you know, I thought it was like, let's have a gay character. Why not? Let's have one of the main characters be gay. You know.
Well, of course, on, you know, when they had their first gay kiss, but it wasn't like a kiss. So is that? But you know, some people say that the first gay kiss on screen or close to it is when Riker kisses this androgynous character. Of course, Riker would kiss a stone if it felt like being kissed. So,
I was gonna say he's not that discerning, right? I mean,
no.
I think
It's like
Kirk said
sex?
to him, dude, you got to
Okay.
calm down. You got to stop kissing people, man. You got to cut it out. So what's some good, if you have not consumed all of the Star Trek, or maybe even if you have, like, what would be a good place to jump back in, or to jump in for the first time, like now that we're all homebound?
I feel, I could be wrong, but I feel there is a necessity that we do things to make ourselves feel calm and feel better. And I'm a huge Next Generation fan. That's my favorite show. I don't hide it. That show's comforting.
Mm.
Enemies become friends. There are happy endings. It's pleasant to listen to. It's pleasant to look at. Nothing's graphic. It's very comforting.
That's so interesting. I was watching, a friend of mine wants to do a podcast about mob movies because we all have a lot of time in our hands. So I said, okay. So he said, go watch Goodfellas. I was like, okay, fine. I've seen Goodfellas. Let me watch it again. So I'm watching it. I love Goodfellas. I think Goodfellas is a terrific movie. But I did find the violence more jarring now than I think I did before. And I hadn't thought about why, but I think it's what you just said, is that maybe, you know, you want something. There's a show now, this keeps coming up. There's a show called Hunters that's on Amazon Prime now. And it's kind of graphic. You know, it's about Nazi hunters, and it's intense, and I'm just not really looking for that right now. Like I'm sure it's really good, but it isn't for me right now.
So this may be my sensitivity, but I've always been somebody who doesn't like anything graphic. I was a theater major, and I love Shakespeare. And Shakespeare, the thought isn't that you show it, you suggest it, and you let the mind imagine it. You don't. Even King Lear gets his eyes gouged out. You don't show it. There's no need to show it.
Right. Yes, exactly.
So I've always been of that thought. Anyway, however, I've been a big fan of the Twilight Zone. Like, I am like a Twilight Zone addict, and Black Mirror. And I recently watched the British series Years and Years, and I don't want to see anything like that. I really don't. I want happy endings right now.
I've never heard of Years and Years. What is that?
It is a more realistic, I don't suggest it to anybody right now. You don't need to watch it now. Wait till this is over. It's a short series, about 6 episodes. They're all about an hour long. It's in the not so distant future, very apocalyptic, very realistic, and
okay.
British.
Okay. Well, that's something that to keep coming back to Star Trek, because we should be, is it's utopian science fiction, right? Like, that's something that's like you hear a lot about dystopian sci-fi, you know, and just dystopian fiction in general. But it's a utopian view of the world. Like, there are obviously still races that we're fighting with. You know, you've got the Klingons, or until you get to Next Generation, then we're not fighting with them anymore. But you know, it's,
Romulan
but
that
that,
we
but that,
have.
by the way, is a perfect example. Is that, you know, we make up with the Klingons. Think of, you know, I'm sure no one would have thought of that in 1967.
No, we understand they're different, but they're cool. They have their thing, we have our thing, and it's good to, you know, you might not want to eat live worms, but more power to them.
Right? If that's what they're into,
Klingon opera school.
they might be a little violent in the bedroom, but you know, it's what people are into. That's what some
Yeah,
people like that.
if he bites you, he likes you. So
Yeah, exactly. No, and look, Worf is an all-time great character. I mean, Michael Dorn is just that. Someone told me they had dinner with him, and that's his voice. Like
that is some voice.
Like that is like he's like, man, could you pass the salt? You know, and it's, you know, like I always loved. There was he passed away, but there was a guy, Ralph Howard, who did the news on 1010 Wins. You probably heard him if you ever listened to 1010 Wins. He used to do entertainment reports, and I used to be a publicist, so I would bring people to him, and he had that sort of great sort of news anchor voice all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's like Phil Hartman's character on News Radio. Did you ever watch News Radio?
Yes.
Yeah, where he's always a little bit like this. You know, there's just a little element of that, because that's how he talks all the time. And apparently Michael Dorn, he's not talking like Worf, but he does still have that deep, amazing, you know, projective voice all the time, which is just incredible to me.
This is going to sound terrible because obviously Riker and Troy end up, but I really liked Troy better with Worf. I thought they were better suited to each other. If Troy goes off and has this complicated relationship with Dax, and Troy makes things work with Riker, and I love Riker, don't get me wrong, but I just think her personality and Worf's personality are very suited to each other.
Well, it's inherently more interesting. I mean, just from a writing standpoint, right? I mean, just, you know, what amazing different personalities, but where are the ways that those different personalities can mesh? You know, I mean, just, you know, that's the best.
He's so cool because he's the first major Klingon character, the only major Klingon character, but he's very not that Klingon. Other Klingons make fun of him for not being very Klingon. He doesn't have a good sense of humor about himself. He's uptight.
Well, he would have to be different from your average Klingon just to be able to be on the Enterprise, right? I mean, just from the basic, you know.
He's more uptight than most people. The character is uptight.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There was a funny one. What was I don't remember what that episode, but like he's constipated and Guinan gives him prune juice. Like, oh, warriors drink, you know. It's like, dude, it's prune juice. We're trying to make you go poopy. I mean, come on. Let's calm down a little bit here. Maybe if you were a little less uptight, you'd be able to use the bathroom. You know. Well, I feel like Guinan might have something to say about this. Like, would she have good advice, or?
Well, Guinan lost a lot of her people through the Borg. She is she's the most mysterious major character in that her answers never come to being like Odo's a mystery from the beginning of Deep Space Nine, but by the end you know everything about him. Whereas Guinan is just she's a good listener, she's warm, she's open, she wants to help other people, and she has a wisdom to her that she never explains.
Right.
She would be worried for us, and she would want us to do what Picard tells us to do.
Mm. But she also, what's the episode where she knows everything has changed? It's where they go through the wormhole. I literally just watched this, and I'm now not going to remember. But, you know, I was watching it like last week, like it was not that long ago. But where somebody goes through a wormhole and everything changes. So now they're at war with the Klingons because some ship had never surrendered when it was supposed to surrender, or it never fought when it was supposed to fight, or something.
And she wants the ship to go back through, knowing
exactly.
Well
she wants the ship to go back through, even though they're going to die. Like they're definitely going to die, and she's pushing Picard pretty hard. Like she's saying to him, "You got to do this," and he's clearly in charge. So I mean, so from that dynamic, but at the same time, she was saying, "No, you got to go do this. This is the right thing to do," and without even being able to say why exactly, which was one of the things that was so interesting.
So that's her wisdom. She trusts her inner instinct.
Right. We never find out what that is. Like we don't have there's no one where we discover that she's connected to some world telepathic network or something.
Well, in the first of the Generations, I think the movie is called, she's in the Nexus with Picard and with Kirk, and it sort of explains why because there's a moment where she says that she has a relationship with Picard that goes beyond family, goes beyond friends. It's a very easy assumption to think that they're lovers, but it's not. I don't think it's that. It's because on some level they're in the Nexus. Once you're in the Nexus, you're always there.
Mm.
And so you can draw sort of knowledge from that.
Right.
But I would trust her. I would trust her.
Oh, absolutely.
If she said stay home, I would stay home. If she said panic, go upstate, I'd go upstate.
One of the fun things about that episode is that she was so obviously right. Like there was no doubt that she was correct, and so it was really more a matter of is everyone going to get back on board? You know, like is everyone going to get on board and do like is Picard going to tell everyone to do the right thing, or is it just going to be whatever it is? But because there was not any dispute, like at least not the way I was watching the episode. Like maybe it's like no, we know what the world looks like. We know what it's supposed to look like. It's supposed to be.
They're all like ready for war, and it's what's funny? I was in a conversation with a stranger on Facebook about Tuvix. Are you familiar with the Tuvix character?
Tell me again, because that sounds familiar.
So there's a transporter accident with Tuvok and Neelix, and they become one person.
Right.
Who has his own consciousness, and he's awesome at everything that both of them were good at in a different way. So he uses Neelix's creativity and sort of Neelix is almost like the Michael Landon character, like let me run out and fix everything, and uses Tuvok's logic and patience, and he wants to live, but Janeway ends up separating him, and when she does, it's probably the most upsetting moment in any Star Trek episode, movie, anything I've ever seen. But when Picard sends that ship back through the wormhole,
well, because we know what it's supposed to look like, right?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be, whatever. It's just.
Even Denise Crosby, she knew, didn't know her, she didn't know why, and you're like, Denise Crosby back. Yeah, she's going through again. But as from what I understand, she didn't really like being on Star Trek. She left it fine.
Well, and then she got to. I mean, I will always love her for Trekkies. I mean, Trekkies.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Trekkies
she's hilarious in Trekkies.
I mean, it's just one of the best movies ever. I don't care if you like Star Trek or not. It's just an amazing movie.
That woman that lives near Brent Spiner so she can look in his balcony. Did he see that and not get disturbed?
It's so. I mean, you get the sense that they kind of deal with it, and they feel like that they have to, and they sort of know where the boundaries are. But at the same time, there's that amazing thing where they're looking at some of the fan drawings where it's Data making love with Spock and all this. And Brent Spiner is just laughing hysterically, looking at these things. I think that's what you got to do. I think I would say they're mostly harmless, the Star Trek fans. At least that's the way I've always felt. When I see Trekkies, I don't get a sense of anyone's dangerous. No one's going to do anything really. They've gone too far, They think they're really in Starfleet, but by thinking they're really in Starfleet, they're distributing food to the homeless.
Right,
there are people who get together for Star Trek and live out those ideals, and that's not a bad thing. It's just they have to do it in uniform, so that's where you're not really sure what we're doing. But they do seem to be good people.
I feel like this is a good place to wrap up, so we have stuff left for next time.
Perfect.
How about you?
That sounds great. I will watch Picard.
Okay.
I will definitely watch Picard, and we can talk about that. And obviously, we got stuff to talk about, so let's do it again.
Yeah. So maybe in the Star Trek way, try to keep caring for each other as best we can. And
I think this is part of that. I think
try not to be Quark's vision of humanity. And
yes, 100%, 100%. All right, this is great. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
All right,
live
talk to you
long
soon.
and
Bye.
prosper.
Yes, live long and prosper. Better than a handshake.
Yay.
All right.